Hey guys, we're here with Coach Kim. Coach, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. How about you?
I'm doing all right. So when did you realize coaching was something you wanted to do for the rest of your life?
Ooh. Well, the initial plan going into college was to have a career after college in playing. But I guess it was around my junior year I realized that that may not happen. I'm a short stature. I'm only 5'3". And back then you talk 20 some odd years ago. The WNBA was not. We didn't have the WNBA. I think the ABL was around, but um started to realize, maybe let me do something different. And so talked to my coach going into my senior year of college. And he was like, have you ever thought about coaching? And I was like, not really. And he was like, you're a great leader. You understand the game, vocal. He was like, why don't you think about coaching some AAU? So that's where I started. I started coaching AAU as an athlete at the University of Richmond, and realized very very quickly that gave me the same passion and fire on that sideline as it did out there on the court. Being a point guard and leading my team. So right after college, got my first job at James Madison University. And I would say probably 3 years after that, that's when I realized that I wanted to continue the career and I wanted to kind of create a path that would put me in a position to be a head coach one day.
Um, we were off the air. We were talking about how you're a native of Virginia.
Yep.
Um, if you were to use one word to describe a Virginia basketball player, one word, what would it be and why?
Cool. I mean, when you think of Virginia basketball, you got to think about Dawn Staley, so you got to think about grit. You got to think about, just the passion and the fire and the desire. I mean, I think in women's basketball, when you talk about Virginia, just the state of Virginia or just the University of Virginia, because that's what people think of, you think about Dawn Staley or you think about Boo Williams.
Yeah, yeah. Boo, boo. He's
Yeah.
had a bunch of great players in his time. Um, if you were to use one word to describe your coaching style, what would it be and why?
I don't know if I can give you one word now. I have to give you, you
Putting the
know,
pressure on you, coach. I'm putting
yeah,
the
I
pressure
know
on you.
you're putting a lot of pressure on me. One word, it's gonna be hard, for one word, but I would just say passion. I think if I had to sum it up in one word, I would say passion. Passion, for first and foremost these young women that I coach every single day. Because for me, it's not just about what they can do for me on the court, but it's I feel it's my responsibility to get them ready for life after basketball. So I'm passionate about that to create that foundation for them. And then on the court, I'm extremely passionate about making them better basketball players and just them understanding the two, how they correlate. What we do on the court, correlates for life after basketball. Being disciplined, being vocal. We've been talking about communication. Just it all goes hand in hand in getting them to understand that it does. So I would say passion would describe, me as a coach and my coaching style.
You played at Richmond, like you mentioned earlier. Having played at that level, reflecting in regards to that time and now, can you tell me one positive in regards to being a player or a coach in that time in comparison to being a player or a coach in this time? What are the contrasts?
Well, I would say that, I started my career off at Radford. That's where I started. I was there, went there for 2 years and was actually rookie of the year my freshman year. And then decided I needed a change and I transferred to University of Richmond, after my sophomore year, and was there for 3 years, sat out a year. Back then we didn't have that, rule where you could go right in and play, so I sat and really got to observe things, from a different eye from the bench and seeing things from a coach's perspective, not being out there on the floor. But I think my experience, I can really relate with a lot of the players, as far as being in a situation where, I started every game as a freshman, made it to the NCAA tournament. We played Tennessee, won our tournament, and was really having a really, really great career. And, then to transfer to the University of Richmond and there, from a basketball standpoint, wasn't as good as I had anticipated and wanted. So kind of going through both scenarios of being that I guess that chick, and then going, somewhere and kind of sitting the bench a little bit and being able to relate to players from both perspectives, the ones that are getting to play and the ones that aren't getting to play. So I really utilize that a lot in my day-to-day conversations, when I talk to young women, because I do understand both perspectives. But one thing I would say when I was in that position is that I never gave up and I never quit. And I took practices as if, those were my games. And I really took it, serious and to heart that I wanted to make my teammates better when I was at Richmond, even though I wasn't getting the opportunity to play, as much as I wanted to.
Mhm. You mentioned your first big break in the coaching world was at James Madison. You split that time between James Madison and Howard. Um, I went to HBCU myself. Tell me about that time and that experience.
Yeah, well, I started off, and I know a lot of people don't remember this because it's been a long time ago. When I first went into coaching in 2000, only the first two assistant coaches were considered full time and could go recruit. So the head coach and two assistants could do the recruiting, and the third assistant couldn't. So I spent that first year really, I would say that first year I did everything. I did team travel, I did scheduling. I was like a Dobo. Seriously, I was a Dobo. Because back then Dobos didn't exist. What was a Dobo back then? Assistant coaches did all the travel. Assistant coaches did the equipment. We did all of that stuff. And also with scouting and being in charge of the guards. So I did a lot. You talked about stress. I talk to my assistants all the time, especially the younger ones that didn't live in the age of a Dobo, when you didn't have a Dobo. I said, guys, I would be in charge of travel, be having to worry about whether or not the pregame meal was going to be correct, and also in charge of a scout. So it was extremely stressful. And so, but I really think being able to experience that, at such a young age, because I guess I was 21, 22 at that time, really helped me grow, and then really helped me appreciate, later on, different other things. And then going to Howard, where I worked for one of my former assistant coaches, Kathy Parson, who was the associate head coach at University of Richmond when I was there, and working for her, and just really seeing, the two different dynamics, because there it was only two assistant coaches. Me and Andre Bolton were the only two assistant coaches, and Kathy was the head coach. So, it was a different experience. It was a great experience. I enjoyed my time at Howard. But then after my first year there, then the NCAA rules changed and they allowed the third assistant to recruit. And so the head coach at JMU called me back and asked me to come back there, because then I would be full time. And so then I went back to James Madison.
Um, Coaching at a HBCU, you've seen the gap in resources in regards to things. Do you think that teams in the MEAC and the SWAC are really given a fair chance in regards to pulling in those type of recruits? And what are some ways that, they can level the playing field? We see, for example, how Jackson State has done a really good job of bringing in high level transfers. Now they have Mo Williams on the men's side coaching basketball. You have Deion Sanders. So, just tell me, honestly, your assessment in regards to your time there, playing teams from that conference, things like that. And, the resources, how do we close the gap?
Yeah. That's been, I'm going on my 23rd, 24th year of coaching. So that's been a while. I think things have changed and they have come, they have gotten a little bit better since I was there, but obviously still has some ways to go. But you have to be excited about some things that are going on for the HBCUs with, let's say Chris Paul, the things that the money he's given, to HBCUs, and some other like NBA stars and other entertainers out there that are giving money back. You got to be excited for Howard with the contract they just signed, with Jordan. I think that's going to take them to another level. So I think it's only a matter of time. I think it's only a matter of time before the HBCUs really step up, and really step on the scene and really give us, some problems, because I think it's the end thing right now. I think, as African American women and men, I think we want to go there and help and feel like want to do something different. Like I want to go do something different. I think the more resources that go into those schools, the more opportunities they'll be able to have, to be able to get some of the top recruits in the country. But when I was there, it was tough. And I think still now, we play them here. We play Maryland Eastern Shore. We play Coppin State. We play Hampton. Those are some of the schools that we play every single year. And when I was there, you had to go out and play like really Power Five schools that were going to give you a really big guarantee game because that had to supplement your budget. So it was hard. Like our non-conference, my first year at Howard, we had a really, really good team, but we had to stack our non-conference schedule. I mean, it was ridiculous because we had to go and get money. So we had to pay these really, really good Power Five schools, so that they could give us $20,000 to $25,000 to supplement our budgets. And so our non-conference record wasn't that good. But then you can look at it two ways. We got into the conference and we were so, seasoned with playing these really good schools that it really helped us when it came for conference play.
So you went back to Richmond, your alma mater.
Yeah.
Was that a hard adjustment for you? Because sometimes it's kind of hard when you kind of been there and played there and your blood, sweat, and tears on the floor, and people aren't meeting the expectations to the level that you expect and they can. So just tell me about that time and just the experience there.
It was a hard decision to make because I was working for Kenny Brooks at JMU at the time, and we were starting to do some good things. We had brought in a really good class. We were about to bring in another good class by the name of about a young lady by the name of Tamara Young. I'm sure everybody knows who she is. So I was a part of that recruitment, but I never got the chance to coach her. So we were about to go in a really good direction, and obviously they did. But I enjoyed my experience at Richmond. I really did. And so, Joanne Boyle was the head coach at the University of Richmond at the time, and she was doing some really good things too, and going, in the right direction. And so I was really torn. But I took the job and went back to Richmond, and it was great. I wasn't there that long, as you can tell. I think I was there, 9 months, because we had a great season. We got into the top 25. And obviously when head coaches start to do really well, then they start to get calls from, other bigger schools in bigger conferences. And so she had multiple opportunities that year to go different places, but she chose Cal. So we weren't there that long, but, I'm trying to think, were there any players on the team that I had coached, I had played with? I think that's what makes it difficult. If I would have went back and there would have been some of my former teammates on the team, I think that would have made it more difficult. But I think I was far enough removed, and then it was a different coaching staff, that it wasn't that hard. It actually was very prideful, to go out there and try to make my alma mater as good as I can make them. And so it was a great time, great experience, great year, but it was very short. And then we went on to Cal Berkeley.
As a coach, what are your non-negotiables?
I can't coach effort. Can't and won't. That's probably one of every head coach's non-negotiables. You can't coach effort. When you're, and I'm sure a lot of head coaches will say this, when you're in a game and you're standing up there and you feel like all your coaching is effort, you feel like you're on an island by yourself. It's hard because there's no play that you can change or run that's going to change somebody's effort. They have to want that. And so that's one thing that's a non-negotiable, is coaching effort. Another non-negotiable is not going to class. I don't play about academics. We've done an unbelievable job here in my 3 years at East Carolina. Academically, I think when I came in, we're at about 2.8, 2.9. Now we're at 3.5 overall team GPA. And so those are, coaching effort, not going to class, are two things that are non-negotiables for me. And I have more, but those are at the top of my list.
Awesome. Like we talked before, I used to coach EYBL. Coach A, you've had these conversations as a head coach now, dealing with your kids between 18 and 22. And I was always so surprised that when I had these conversations with my kids, I'd be like, hey, did you watch, Cincinnati play? Oh, do you know, have you seen, Nas Hillman play? Like, did you watch that game last night versus Iowa and Rutgers? Like, and the kids are just like, eh. Like, so it's just like today's young player, they don't watch a lot of their peers. They don't watch a lot of women's basketball players and coaches and, WNBA, a lot of our kids don't, but a lot of them do watch NBA, for the most part. If you ask them as a coach, in a position of leadership and power, for lack of better terms, why do you think that's the case? How do we modify that? Because we always say that we're not being adequately paid and compensated, but our kids don't even support it on the level that they should be. So how can we change this?
I just think this generation has so much more going on. And I think one of its worst enemies is social media. I think in some ways it's a really good thing. I think in some ways it's changed the game, from a lot of different aspects, from, the mental aspect of, kids they want likes. That's what I say all the time. They want likes, so they trying to live up to the hype of social media to get as many likes as they want. And that could, cause the mental depression, the mental illness that we're seeing a lot, in our generation. But we talk about it all the time, it's not only just watching women's basketball, watching the WNBA or watching other college games, it's just watching greatness in general. I would be interested to see how many college athletes or high school athletes watched that performance by Serena last night. I mean, that was incredible, to be able to watch greatness, to be able to watch history. And, we have a group me with our team, and, I'm up, me and my husband, we're yelling at the TV, and I'm having to, watch myself because I got 9-year-old twins that are trying to sleep to get ready for school in the morning. But I'm texting my team, and I'm like, are you guys watching this? Like, are you watching this greatness, this history that's about to happen? I mean, she's 40 years old out there playing like she's 20. And then, there's other things that come on TV. Like, I love watching the 30 for 30 things that come on ESPN. The one that I really liked here lately is the one of Derek Jeter. Did you watch that?
Yes. I love those.
Unbelievable. And so it's not just watching games, it's just watching greatness in general that I don't feel like our generation do a lot of. And you can learn so much. I mean, you can learn so much. And, our 9-year-old son is really into baseball. And so my husband sat him down every Thursday and they watched every episode of the Derek Jeter. And he's 9. He's 9. And so we're trying to explain to him, greatness and just his work ethic and how he refused to quit. And, it's just a lot of things that, I took out of that, things that he said. One thing I thought it was extremely funny when he was like, when he had broke his ankle and he was hurt. And they were like, he says, people always say, oh, I'm 80% or I'm a 90%. He said, you either can play or you can't, so it's like you take little tidbits out of that. But I don't know. I just think they just have so much other stuff going on. But I think you got to constantly, bring it to their attention. You got to constantly talk to them about it. I'm thinking I like to do different stuff every year when we go on the road. And I'm thinking about this year when we go on the road, like once we're done with dinner, you always get the meeting rooms or whatever, have a projector set up and have them watch things like that at night, so if those are environments that you can control, and you can always say, hey, I tried, I put it in front of you, and maybe you'll have one or two that'll grasp me like, I really like that. I'm going to start doing more of that, so those are some things that I'm going to think about doing while we're on the road.
Mm-hmm. Derek Jeter, Jersey guy. I'm from
Yeah.
Jersey. Great athletes in New Jersey, that's for sure. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So you spent time at Cal, and then you went to the University of Georgia. You coached alongside Coach Andy Landers.
Yeah.
Overshare. I'm a big synergy guy. I'm a
Yeah.
big DVD clinic type of guy. One of my favorite ones are Andy Landers teaching his defense. A lot of passion, a lot of love for the game. You could tell that he's very serious about his craft. Tell me one thing you learned from conversation with him that you have taken now, and now that you're a head coach. Because I think sometimes in a moment it may not permeate or it may not really grab you until you moved over that one chair. You're like, okay, coach was right. Like, this is very, very key.
How much time do we have? I mean, I could go on and on. Coach was a very caring guy. People didn't realize that because sometimes you only see, you only saw the games when he was super fired up and super intense and in the girls' faces and things of that nature. But he was very caring. He would give you his last dime if he could. He was just very caring and really, really passionate about his players and passionate about his coaches. But I would say, as far as sitting in this chair right here, he always told me, because we were very open. We had a lot of conversations, and he knew, when I came to Georgia, that my ultimate goal was to be a head coach. And so my whole 4 years there, he was really training me to be a head coach. I didn't realize it, but he was. And I was the recruiting coordinator there, and it only took me about three or four times going into his office bringing problems to him that I realized you don't walk into his office without a solution. And so that's one thing that I always talk to my assistant coaches about. As head coaches, we have 50 million things going on. 50 million things things that they don't even realize. And if you're gonna come in here with a problem, like, already kind of have a solution in your head. Now, when I came in with the solution, they weren't always the solutions he was looking for, but we would have constant communication and stuff. And he would sit back and prop his leg up on his desk and think about it. And he'd be like, well, what do you think about what if we did this? But he was training me to be a head coach. He was training me to think like a head coach, to solve problems, because that's what we are as head coaches. We're problem solvers. He also used to tell me a lot that being a head coach is like being a CEO of a Fortune 500 corporation, because you are managing people, and that you will manage people more than you will actually spend time coaching. And that is so true, because you are managing people, and I do find myself, spending more time in the day of dealing with situations, solving problems, things that don't even have anything to do with basketball. And so the percentage of how much you actually do basketball versus the percentage of time that you actually manage people and you problem solve are a little skewed a little bit. I would say basketball is probably down here, and the managing of people is a little bit higher.
Next up was Virginia native, Power 5. You're in the ACC, highly aggressive, conference. Lots of schools with fantastic resources and great players. How did you guys close the gap? What made Virginia, Virginia?
Just what you said, Virginia's Virginia. It's unique, it's special. It's one of the top public schools in the country, as far as academics. And so, when you called and said University of Virginia, people instantly listen. And so it was another prideful thing, being from the state of Virginia and being able to walk into a recruit's home or walk into a gym with Virginia written across my chest. Even though I didn't go to the University of Virginia, I'm a Virginia native. And it was very prideful, and it made me feel really, really good that I was representing my state. And Joanne Boyle was, this is my third go around with her, University of Richmond, and then Cal Berkeley, and now Virginia. So I knew her. I knew her style. I knew the kind of kid she wanted. I knew what she needed from me. Obviously, being my third time working for her, so it was a very easy transition to go there. And the ACC, is a very fun league, to play in. Obviously, was a little different then. Early on, I was there for 5 years. So for a couple of years, Maryland was in the league. Some teams that aren't in there now, but just as the SEC, every night it's a battle. You're not taking any nights off. You are walking into unbelievable facilities. As you said, you are competing against programs that have unbelievable budgets, but you do too. So kind of an even playing field when it came to that. But love my 5 years at Virginia. A lot of things happened in my life in those 5 years. Had twins, got married. So my life and my perspective towards coaching changed a little bit throughout those 5 years as well.
Hardest player to scout for? You were like, every time, hardest player, like, oh my God, every time I had scout, or every time we played that one kid, I just was so happy when she graduated. Like, she was that good, just extremely tough to deal with.
I would say I'm gonna go here recent, and I'm gonna, as a head coach, I would say being here at East Carolina, Mia Davis at Temple.
Okay.
Glad she's gone. Glad she's gone.
Yep. You then went on to become the head coach. Hartford.
Mhm.
Why was that school an ideal fit for you?
It was time, and I felt ready. I guess it was my 4th year at Virginia. I know everybody knows the story. Joanne Boyle, pretty much my whole time at Virginia was going through an adoption process with a baby in Africa, and so we dealt with that my whole 5 years there at Virginia. And so I think it was my 4th year. It's either my 3rd or 4th year there. They called and told her, "Hey, you got to come get her. If you want her, you got to fly over to Africa right now and get her." And it was right during the exam break, and we thought she'd be back. Exam breaks are what, 2 weeks? You don't have games. So it was like, okay, great, perfect timing. And so she flew over there and ended up calling us about a week and was like, guys, I'm gonna end up being over here longer than what I anticipated. And I kind of went into the season. So I got the opportunity to coach because I was associate head coach. So I took over for about 3 weeks. I coached 3 games. Um, and at that point I realized I was ready, as ready as I could be, because I would go on job interviews and ADs would ask me, well, you've never sat in that big seat or you never called a timeout or whatever. And now I'm like, yeah, I have called a time and I'm 3-0, won those 3 games. So I felt it was time and I was ready, but I wasn't going to take just anything because I was in a great situation. I was at the University of Virginia. I was at, 2 hours from my hometown. My husband, Corey, we were doing this together. We had a set of twins. He's from Baltimore, so he wasn't that far from home. And, we knew we wanted to try to do it together. So it couldn't just be any program. And then, at the time, Craig Littlepage was the AD at Virginia. And he called me in his office and he said, hey, my good friend, the AD at the University of Hartford, Anton Goff. He said he's going to give you a call. He has a spot open, and he feels like you'd be perfect for it. And I was like, I knew Jim Rosati, I knew what she had done at Hartford, but I really didn't know a lot about the situation. And I'd always said in my mind, I didn't want to live up north. Sorry, I know you're a Jersey boy, but I'm a Southerner. And so from the first time I got on the phone with him, I knew I had to take some interest in this job. Just when you're especially when you're taking your first head coaching job, you want, and I learned this from Coach Landers, you want to go into a situation where you feel like you can win. You want to go into a situation where you feel like you can recruit there, meaning where is its location? Is it easy to get to? Is it easy accessible? Can you get the kids easily? Obviously in Connecticut, it's a drive from New York that has a lot of talent. We can even drive to Maryland. It was just a good fit for us recruiting. And then he said, you got to make sure you got the support from the AD. And I really felt that from Anton. Lots of energy, lots of passion. His personality fit my personality. And I had to let him know that, my family has to be a part of this. I'm a mom. I have a set of twins. I don't want them to feel like they're ever being neglected. I want them to be able to come to practice. I want them to be able to travel. And my husband has to be on staff with me. Perfect. Sure. So it checked all the boxes. And I knew that it was an opportunity that I needed to take. And it was a great opportunity. And we had 3 great years there.
Mm-hmm. Um, what was the hardest question you had to answer? Or it's just like in the interview process, or for young assistant coaches that are aspiring to be head coaches and going to be in that space to be answer those questions. What's the one question they need to be able to answer? Like everybody has their mission statement and things like that when it comes to the interview and stuff like that. And those things are good. But what is one thing you better be prepared to answer, and one that kind of threw you off?
And that was my thinking in my other 3 to 4 interviews that I had gone into, is that I had to answer the question the way they wanted it to be answered. And I was being a robot. And then I finally figured it out. I got to be me. I got to be who I am. I got to go sell myself and sell my philosophy and sell the culture and the environment that I want to create. And I did that at Hartford. And it didn't even feel like an interview. I finally was like, you know what? I got to give them the answers that I feel comfortable with and what I'm really passionate about. Because if I'm going in there trying to answer a question the way I feel like they want to be answered, can you really get somebody to believe in that? Versus if I'm answering a question the way I truly feel about it and my passion about it, then you're gonna be able to sell it. You're gonna be able to show your energy and your passion about how you feel. And that's what I did at Harvard. I just answered every question, the way I truly felt instead of trying to answer it the perfect way. And once I did that, I was Kim. I was Kim McNeil and I was myself. And I think I just really blew them away with my passion, for coaching and my passion for who I truly wanted to be as a head coach. And it didn't even feel like an interview. It felt like I was just sitting at a table, just having casual conversation with people that I'd known. They just wanted to get to know me better.
Mhm. Highly successful at Hartford, you move on to East Carolina. What made this school the perfect place for you at this point in your career?
Well, now if you look at it, I think I've made the right decision because Harvard's now going D3.
Timing is
You
everything,
know,
coach.
yeah,
Timing is everything.
it is, and that's what and then that's key that you said that because it is. Timing is everything, and I'll be honest with you, I really struggled with making that decision because we were gonna bring back, we had been in the title game the last 2 years at Hartford battling Maine. We were bringing back, I think, 2 we were losing a lot, but we were bringing back a lot. We were losing probably 50%, but bringing back 50%. And some young women that I was extremely close with that really helped us turn the program around were returning, and it was a hard decision. When I had to walk into that locker room and tell the team that day that I was leaving, I've never seen so many tears shed. Um, it was really, really hard. But when I looked at resources, because I could feel some things were about to happen at Harvard, just from a resource, from a budget standpoint. Um, and just location, as I said before, I am a Southern girl, and all that snow and cold, I wasn't feeling it. And, and so they had the opportunity, and then my family, even, Corey, it's probably about the same for him now as it was when we were in Hartford, about a 5-hour drive. But for me, that wasn't a drive to get to Virginia. And it's important for me to be able to see my family. It's important for me to be able to see my mom and my mom be around. And so that was a flight for her. And so to be able to get to North Carolina, where now I'm 3 hours and 15 minutes away from my family, and they get to be a part of, they get to see a lot of games, was important to me as well. So, I would say from resources to location to conference, because the American is a very, very good league. And then once again, the AD, John Gilbert, here at East Carolina was very aggressive in the process. And that's my personality. I'm very aggressive. So I felt like, once again, our personalities matched up. And then Anton had left. He left, he wasn't even at Hartford 4 months. I wasn't even at Hartford 4 months before he left and went on to St. John's. So I just felt like the time was right.
Um, the first year or two are always tough as you're, really setting the tone and culture of a program. Um, Tell me about some things that you had to adjust in the first year or two here at East Carolina, from a mental side or a physical side that you feel like, were tone setters and you built that foundation to take this team to that next level.
I think that first and foremost, the program needed some stability. It needed some stability, with some coaches to come in and, really, have the same system, have the same support staff in place, for a while. And we've been able to do that to sustain some people and just create a family environment. That's our motto here. And it was the same way at Hartford, FAB, family, academics, and basketball, in that order. That's what we're about, and that's what we preach on a daily basis. So, it was really coming in and just really, laying that foundation, implementing a new style of play, a new style of offense and defense, but just really developing that trust, because, it was the year before I got here was really hard on these young women. They went a whole year without having, a head coach. They had 2 interim coaches within that year. So they saw a lot of people come in and out of their lives. So we knew right from the jump we had to come in and create that trust and create that line of communication for them to understand that, we are here for them. Our doors are wide open. We're going to push and challenge them. I say to recruits all the time, like, if you don't want to be pushed and if you don't want to be challenged, East Carolina's not the place for you. But if that's what you want, then you can come in, you can have a great career, and enjoy, our environment here at ECU. So, you're right. The first 2 years are always hard, especially, we had a lot of kids that left, once the previous head coach got let go, some recruits in that recruiting class, decommitted, went other places that I think would have definitely helped us. So that first recruiting season was really hard. And then COVID hits, so that, trying to rebuild a program and start a program, during COVID is really, really hard too. So I almost feel like we've been set back a couple of years, in this process. But really looking forward to this year.
You've been through all walks of the coaching world in regards to the process, I would say, for lack of better terms. What do you think is easier, building it and getting to the top, or being at the top and maintaining it?
Ooh, pretty much all of my jobs I've had have been rebuilding, besides being a part of Georgia. Georgia, even though they weren't the Georgia, of the old, when they were getting to the Final Fours and, national championship games, they were a consistent top 25 program. But you look at Cal, when we went there, they hadn't had went to the tournament in double-digit years. Virginia, we were trying to rebuild Virginia. Hartford, yes, they had, they had a tradition, but they hadn't had a winning season in 3 years. East Carolina is a rebuild, so, I guess you could say that I guess I'm known for being, a rebuilder and being a part of rebuilding programs. And it's not easy. But at the end of the day, you have to believe in who you are and believe in your system and believe in, I always say to assistant coaches that, are aspiring to be head coaches, that you have to be you and you have to figure out who you want to be. And you have to believe in that, and you can't waver. My first couple of years, another reason why I felt like Hartford was a great opportunity for me, because it allowed me to fail. I failed at some things and I learned from it. I learned to trust my gut. When my gut is telling me something, I need to go with it. Being a head coach, you have to, it's sometimes it's very, very lonely, because you might have your 2 assistants or 3 assistants that's wanting you to do one thing, and you have to be able to lay your head down at night and feel like you made the right decision. Or if you don't make the decision that you felt like you wanted to make, and you go with somebody else's decision and that decision doesn't work, you also have to be strong enough to still own it and say, hey, I made a decision. And I did that a lot. And so I've learned that I've got to follow my gut. My gut's not going to lie to me. Early in my career, I was able to make some decisions that didn't work out necessarily. I took some chances. I've definitely learned from that. But I guess you can say I'm known as a rebuilder, and it's all about believing in you and having a plan and having an identity. You got to know who you are. You got to know what you want to be on the floor. Because I think when you go back and forth, then the girls don't know what to believe in. So you want them to believe in something too. And I think that's why we were able to have so much success at Hartford so early, because, we came in and we completely changed and went, completely different from what Jim Rosati. Jim Rosati was more, half court man. We were full court pressing you all in the passing lanes. And my first year, we didn't have the personnel to play that way. And there were nights when I came home and I looked at Corey and I was like, are we doing the right thing? Are we putting these kids in a position to be successful? There were many nights that I didn't sleep. I'm like, do we have the personnel to play this way? But as a staff, we believed in it. We sold the hell out of it. And those kids knew that, hey, this is the way we're going to play. We're not going to be able to go to Coach A and talk bad about the system. We're not going to be able to go to Coach B and talk bad about the system, because they are all on the same page and they believe in it. So then guess what? The players started believing it. And I think it was my first or second year, we started getting in the top 10 in the nation in some defensive categories. And then boom, it just took off from there.
Today's kid is different.
Yes.
We talked about that earlier before we got on the air. They're different. Before, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, when a recruit came on campus, You show them around,
Mm-hmm.
eat,
Mm-hmm.
library, training room, blah, pictures, sit down with them, talk, they leave. Perfect. Nowadays, kids come in, they show you that, you show them this, you show them that. They tell you they want to see this, they tell you they want to see that. You sit down with the player, you ask them questions, and they say, no, 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 I have questions for you. They pull out this long list of questions that they have. So I think that today's kid is a lot more, for lack of better terms, engaged
Mm-hmm.
in their process. Parents are a bit more engaged too as well, for the good and the bad. Um, I don't know if you ever had one of these, but is there ever a question that you had to answer as a coach on the phone or in person with a player that really, like, coach, like, I wasn't expecting that, or that's a pretty tough question, or because I think those moments do come up sometimes, or
Mm-hmm.
one of those questions you need to be prepared for that a recruit may ask you.
After doing it for 20 plus some years, there really ain't nothing, that I haven't heard. I do think that with NIL deals and with, cost of attendance and, all this extra money that's being given out, there are way more questions about the financial piece that are being asked. And that's, I guess you can look at that in two ways. It can be a great thing that the game that our sport is evolving. But it also you can look at it as if, what are you really coming here for? Are you coming here to get an opportunity to play, get an opportunity to win some championships and get an opportunity to grow as a young woman? Or are you just looking at, where you're gonna make the most money? So I do feel like that aspect of it has hurt our game a little bit. From the standpoint of, it's just like you said, it's just different. I think back, when I played, back in the mid 90s, we didn't have training tables, we didn't have cost of attendance, we didn't have NILs, we didn't have nutritionists and all these things that these athletes have these days. And I just really feel like, some they really take it for granted. Like they really don't realize like how truly blessed they are. And that's a constant conversation. Every day, we talk about, there are some programs out there that get more than we do. You know what? But there's also a lot of programs that don't get nearly as half as what we do. But regardless of it, we are blessed. We woke up this morning. We were allowed to see, the Lord allowed us to see another day. And I think we really truly have to be grateful for that. So, I'm really big on that. Just these kids kind of staying humble and understanding that, it can easily be taken away from them, and we talked about it the other day. Just, we had an ECU athlete here, baseball player, freshman that was here for summer school, local kid, not that far away from home. And one weekend decided to go on the river on a boat, and had a boating accident, and they had to amputate his leg. He will never have the opportunity to put on an ECU uniform. You look at Anna, the young lady in Louisville. Her and her family are out, get ready to go play, a tournament, and lives are taken. Will she ever be able to play at Iowa? Who knows? We don't know. But both of those athletes are lucky and can say that they are still alive and they get to wake up the next morning. But possibly a game that they love has been taken away from them. So we had that conversation the other day before practice, and you could really see some people thinking like, wow, yeah, like this could be taken away from me at any moment. You have to be grateful, you have to be thankful. And so that's a big part of what we do here at East Carolina, is just letting these young women know how truly blessed they are. I'm big on that. I really am. I'm old school, I'm old school. I always say, what happened to the days when you were just grateful that you are getting your education paid for? I remember, I have an older brother, who went to Virginia Tech and got a partial scholarship academically, but my parents still had to pay and get student loans. And I just remember, teasing him saying, hey, mom and dad don't have to pay for me to go to school. They had to pay for you. Those conversations aren't being had no more. The conversations are, oh, I got a bigger NIL deal than you did, or I'm getting more cost of attendance at my school. It's just changed, but it is good to see, the game grow. It's good to see, athletics grow in general. But yeah, I know I got off on a tangent, but I could sit here and talk to you all day.
A couple more questions, Coach. We talked a little bit earlier and even before about closing the gap in
Mhm.
regards to schools. Um, we have the portal now, the transfer portal,
Yep.
and there are mixed feelings and reviews on it. There are some schools that really benefit from it. Like we
Mhm.
mentioned, the HBCU schools, they brought in a girl from USC, the
Yep.
big girl, they're able to close that gap. I think quicker for new head coaches, they're able to close that gap quicker. Um,
Mhm.
kids can go out and play immediately. Um,
Mhm.
but as a result, we've seen a lot of kids, a number every single year actually go up in regards to the percentage of kids that are leaving their programs that are even playing big minutes. I can name numerous kids that were, conference rookie of the year, player of the year, first team all conference, producing at a very high level, you know,
And they leave.
and leave and
Yep.
leave. You even see, kids who, quote unquote goes to a school on a quote unquote lower level to get their numbers up and then shoot up
Leave.
as well.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
it is a very, very tough dynamic. Pros and cons of it. What do you think about it, Coach? What do you think about the transfer portal? Are we handling it properly? Does it need to go back to the way it used to be? What are your thoughts?
I have mixed feelings about it. Um, I do think that I do think it's hurting the game a little bit. I do. Especially, and I'm sure the Power Fives would totally disagree with me, but especially the mid, like the kind of the level that I'm at, it's very, very hard because I mean, I've been the victim of, two of my best players, leaving and going, Power Five. Um, so it's hard, it really is. And it's just changed the dynamics of recruiting tremendously. Um, I've told my staff we're going to continue to coach. To recruit the high school kid as hard as possible. We really are. I just feel like you are able to create relationships longer with high school kids. Think about the portal. That crap happens quick. A kid's on the portal one week and the next week they're off, or kids on the portal one day and the next day they're off. So how much do you really know about that player and how much do they really know about your program? Now, some situations are different. Some kids are going to programs that recruited them out of high school, so they have, an existing relationship. And we actually did that this year with a young lady. So we kind of already knew her. But we're utilizing the portal. We're going to go after this weekend, big recruiting weekend for us. Bringing in some of our top kids. We're going to go after the best high school kids that we feel like can fill holds or make us better first. That's how I want to. That's how I want to recruit. And then if we don't get what we need out of the high school, then we will go to the portal in the spring to fill the gaps that we didn't get, or to fill a gap that maybe somebody we didn't anticipate leaving, because that's always going to happen. You don't know how to manage your roster anymore. It's just very hard from year to year. You don't know what your roster is going to look like because you think a kid might be happy and boom, they're gone. Or you can always everybody can always say, but coach, you can get rid of a kid and easier now because maybe a couple of years ago kids were afraid to leave because they didn't want to sit. Now kids, they'll leave because they know they can go right in and play. So it's 50-50. I wouldn't have an issue with it going back the way it used to be where kids had to sit. Because I do feel like we're going to be used as like a D league to where we can go get my numbers and then I'm gonna go Power Five. But it's definitely changed the game. But there's some programs out there that are only recruiting off the portal. I don't want to do that. I do not want to do that. I want to build relationships with kids. I want them to get to know us. I want us to get to know them. I want us to get time to do our research and get what we truly need from high school. And then what we failed or what we missed out on in high school, then we go to the portal.
Last question. So you guys have a game at Temple Call you, I say, Coach, I'm coming up to see the game. I want to see you guys play. I drive to Philly. I see you guys playing Temple.
Mhm.
East Carolina gets the win. Great,
Yep.
great, great. Walking back to my car, I get in the car, and before I drive off, what do you want me to think about East Carolina? What's the thing?
As I say to my kids all the time, when people walk away from leaving us, I want them to say, God, they play so hard and with so much passion. That's what I want fans leaving our game saying. Those kids get after it. They play hard, they play with passion, and they are fun to watch. I
Mhm.
tell them all the time in practice, you guys are boring right now. You are boring, you know? So that's what, if you come to a game, that's what I want you to walk away saying, man, those kids, coach got them kids working hard, because a work ethic will go with you anywhere you go.
Mhm.
In the working world, whether or not you want to go into the corporate world, whatever you want to do, a work ethic will follow you.
Yeah,
So I want my kids, I want you to walk away and talk about how hard we play and how much fun we have doing it.
yeah, yeah. All right, Coach. Well, I'm a long-winded guy. I asked a bunch of questions, and now I leave the ball in your court. You can ask any questions to me that you like, or if there's something that I missed talking about, you like podcasts, you like books, you like this, you like that, you want to talk about your team or what makes your team special, the ball's in your court. If there's anything you want to say.
No, I just, I love what I do. I have a passion for what I do, but I always let people know first and foremost, I'm a mother first. I told you I talked about those 5 years when I was in Virginia, how my life changed, the dynamics of my life changed, and it changed me as a coach. I became a mother, I became a wife. And balancing that is not easy. You know, trying to be the best mother that I can be, trying to be the best wife that I can be, trying to be the best coach I can be. It's not easy, and it becomes challenging at times, but I have a great support group around me, with my husband being my right hand man, being on my staff. I have an unbelievable Dobo that takes care of me from a strategic, all kinds of things point of view. My mom has been there for me. My mother-in-law has been there, but I also feel like, I'm a mother to these young women that I coach every single day too. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that all 15 of them are happy. All 15, it's hard to play 15 people. So they all unhappy with their roles, but I would be very, very shocked if any of them said that this coaching staff doesn't care about them as people off the court. And I really pride myself on that. Being, them understanding that you might not get to play, just might not be your year, might not be your time, just might not be the right fit. But that staff does care about it, and they want to see me do well off the court. Um, but yeah, I just want people to know I take pride in being a mom. I do. I never want my children to feel like they are being put to the side. They come first, and they are part of this process. They are part of this journey with Corey and myself in rebuilding this program, and they love dressing in purple and gold as well.
All right, Coach. Well, I'd like to really thank you for your time. I appreciate it, and you have a good one.
You too. Good luck to you guys this season.
Thanks. Thanks.